Good evening, everybody, and thank you again for being here. I want to say welcome, poetry lovers. I'm Tom Hogan, the director of the Milwaukie Poetry Series, and we really appreciate you being here. I hope everybody has been keeping cool with the hot weather, and that encourage people to come out tonight rather than being a tourist, because it's nice. It's less warm than it was a couple of days ago. So thank you for being here. There's a lot of demands on all our time. There's other things you could be doing. So we appreciate it that you're here tonight. I want to say the same to anyone who has logged on because we are live streaming tonight. So thank you for being here. Thank you to log in and participate in the poetry reading online. This is also going to be recorded, and in about 10 days, it should be up for viewing on the Letting Library YouTube channel. So again, thank you for being here. And I want to say some other thanks, because we're very grateful to the city of Milwaukie for supporting us really from the beginning, and we've been going 18 years, which is we're very pleased about. So it's a big thanks to the city of Milwaukie. Thanks to the Letting Library. Originally, we were in the Pond House, if some of you remember the Pond House, which is a house here on the other side of the pond. And since then, a new library has been built. This library is, and when I heard this maybe a couple of months ago, it's 5 years old. And it just is another sign of how time flies. But it's a lovely library. So thank you to the Letting Library for their support. Also to the Milwaukie Poetry Series Committee. We do have a committee, and you need that to have something happen. And my lovely wife Jane and Kristen are here tonight, so thank you. And can we give the committee a hand? Yeah. Kristen is going to be leading the Q&A when we get to that after reading. And when we get to the Q&A, please try and wait for her to get there with the microphone. She'll have the microphone, but we get the question, but I mean, we don't always get the question. We get the answer because the poet has answered the question. But we'd like to have the question, so just give her 5 seconds and she will be there. And our final thanks is to our technical person, Joshua Reynolds, who is back here with the headphones on. And Joshua is a magician. He's from the Willamette Falls Media Center. He does our technical aspects of all of this, and he makes all of this happen. So we have great appreciation for what Josh does for us. Yeah, it's very, it is very deserved. A couple of things I want to say about coming events. Our poet, next month, we're coming to the end of our season, so we have our bonus reading, which is the second Wednesday in July, which is going to be next month. And we had something really nice work out. Our reader is going to be Don Colburn. And those of you who may have known Don when he was here, he was a longtime reporter for the Oregonian. 2 years ago, he moved to Portland, Maine. And we have this bonus reading for poets who are not living in Oregon now, but have ties to Oregon. And Don certainly fits that criteria. He worked it out. He was going to come out for a trip anyway. So he worked it out, and he worked it out to be our poet in July. So we're very happy about that. A second thing, and this is just materialized, we have a special event that is going to be coming up also in July, and this is a Persian translator. And he was here about 10, 12 years ago, and he translated Walden into Persian or Farsi. And he is going to be here, and he's done some other translations. Kim Stafford has set this up. So this is going to be on July 16th. There's going to be more information out about that. And finally, we have another special event is this Sunday, and this is a joint sponsorship with the library, the Milwaukie Poetry Series, Milwaukie Pride, and the bookstore here in Portland. And Judith Barrington is going to be here, and she's going to be reading from her memoir. And that's on Sunday here at 3 o'clock. So it should be wonderful. I've heard Judith read. She's a great reader. It's a terrific memoir. It's going to be this Sunday, and we will have something out about that. And it's at 3 o'clock. So, I've been excited about this. I've been looking forward to having Connie here and hear her read. She has lived her entire life in Oregon. She says, with the exception of 20 years, chapter. That was a long chapter. Spent in the San Francisco Bay Area. There she had the opportunity to hear and meet many wonderful poets in person and began writing in earnest. She does not have any academic training specific to creative writing. Rather, she has taken advantage of opportunities to study with many teachers and mentors who have encouraged and nurtured her. She's an avid hiker, and many of her poems are generated on trails or otherwise inspired by communing with nature. She especially loves the Oregon coast and spends considerable time reading, writing, and walking in Manzanita. She's the author of a nonfiction book, Exploring the Oregon Coast Trail. I've been using it for quite some time, which offers readers an itinerary for hiking the entire 380-mile Oregon coast, from the Washington to the California border, and which celebrates our public beaches. She's also motivated to write about other travels, either past or present. She believes travel to different cultures and countries open our senses in many ways. Couldn't agree more with her about that as well. So, her poems have appeared in One Art, Sky Island Journal, Gyroscope Review, Quartet, Catamaran, Willowa Journal, Cider Press Review, and elsewhere. Her poetry has also received recognition from the Oregon Poetry Association. Her first full-length of poetry, A Story Interrupted, was published by Early Press in 2022. And she is hard at work on a second collection, which we may hear some more about. So, it's great to have her here. Would you join me in welcoming our poet tonight, Connie Soper. Connie.
Thank you, Tom, and members of the Leading Library staff and the committee. I've been to so many wonderful readings here. It's a real honor to be here. As I was preparing for this reading, I considered not only which poems I should read, but their order, or the way to organize the reading. And I decided to structure the reading to be consistent with many of the themes that I find myself writing about. I gravitate towards writing about my travel experiences, both past and present, experiences in other countries and cultures, also my connection with nature, especially the Oregon coast, and also exploration of my heritage, which includes poetry about my ancestry, my family, and even though some of these poems are specific to my family, I hope they will resonate with you as well. So I'm going to begin the reading by covering some poems about travel and other places. And as a matter of fact, the first poem I'm going to read is a place I've never been to. But I feel a connection to it. It's been in the news, and like a lot of things in the news, not in a good way. But I just, in response to that, I wrote this poem that's called We Will Call You by Your Name. Ancestors of those who live here still looked up and named you for what they saw. Denali, the tall one. Now cartographers mark new maps, erasing your soft syllables. But Denali, just shove those charts into a drawer and click the lock. They cannot take away what you've carried so long, your name, carved into glaciers, sung by the caribou. It rattles in the wind, shaping your slopes, rushes through swollen, braided rivers. Rock, river, forest, beast, you live within all of them, and they in you, claiming the wild whole of this place. Violet clouds crack open their mouths to speak it, Denali, giving back what no one else can own. We promise to say it and say it again, one word, rooted in your essence, alive with an ancient abundance. And now I'm going to read a couple of poems about a trip I took to Iceland. I had planned to go there in 2020 in order to explore my ancestry because my great-grandmother was from Iceland and she emigrated in 1874. And I went with a couple of my brothers to see if we could find her homeland, or to explore her homeland, and we found her farm where she had lived. Anyway, we had planned to go in 2020, but because of the pandemic, that did not happen. But what did happen is that I participated in an online, I think it was a Facebook or YouTube tour of Iceland. And so I wrote this poem about the virtual tour. It's called Virtual Nostalgia. Go ahead, fly from a chair. Navigate your laptop over the blue lagoon, above massive ancient glaciers to the sharp bite of a waterfall. Watch from your living room as the aurora borealis greens Arctic skies. Drone cameras zoom over thatched roof farmhouses to spy on the sheep, goats, and wild caribou. Down, down, hovering above cities, streets, houses, where people like you eat breakfast of smoked herring, yogurt, and coffee. You long for it, like a melancholic music rousing the ghosts of your ancestors. Oh, sure, ice caps are melting there too. Winter's long and bleak, the cost of bread and beer. A word for watching weather through windows. Glugavadur, say it. Download yourself to stand at the coordinates of brisk and briny, where citizens wear eyes the color of a robin's egg, whales breaching, volcanoes smoldering over their rims. You, descending into Reykjavik, return to a place you've never been, like a hand you've always held, a face you've always known. And then I really did go in 2021. I had a chance to tour around Iceland, and I wrote this poem in response to that trip. A brief history. We all come from somewhere, birthed with stories to tell. Mine a saga of umlauts and vowels, a voyage begun by sailing adrift. My ancestors stayed at the source of that mistake, crafting shelter from turf, thatched roof, a window for looking out to the climb of horizontal rain, wind bending anything rooted. The silence of snow, the shape of ice, green aura in the night sky. Those women salted herring, skinned rabbits, found use for it all. Bone, meat, sinew, and pelt. They survived plague and barren tundra, the boredom of waiting for seasons to unfold, for earth to soften into its thaw. Fish running again, the whole world like a smile without a face. Today, I tour those old turf houses, heritage sites not so far from Reykjavik, walk into claustrophobic rooms with low ceilings, fire pits, pens where animals slept. Timelines on the wall span centuries of kings and treaties, bishops and battles. A brief history of the long lineage from then to now, from them to me. I look out the same window to the same home of fire and fury my people saw, the awful beauty that would not be tamed. Okay, now to go somewhere warmer. I never thought I'd write a poem about bats, but I did. I went to Portugal, and visited a university there with the most beautiful library I've ever seen. It's It's at the University of Coimbra, and it was it has been there since 1728 and has something like 200,000 books. Beautiful, ornate building with domed ceilings, very Baroque style. It's just beautiful. And there's a colony of bats that live there. And they come out at night and they eat the pests and the insects that would otherwise destroy the books. And so that this is part of their system for keeping the books alive, is that these bats come out. So I wrote a poem called Tiny Bats of Coimbra. At dusk, when the last patron has left and the grand Baroque rooms are dimmed and quiet, tiny bats emerge from the folds of red velvet drapes. They swoop between rungs of ladders tilted against the tallest shelves, row after row, resplendent with the heritage of a country. Portuguese poems, stories, and songs. Pipistrelli unfold their wings, fragile as parchment, to flit through the stacks. With a flick of tongues, they prey on pests, saving sepia maps, drawn with boundaries no one remembers. Centuries of conquest and treaties, inked in elegant calligraphy, protected now by the soft thrum of webbed wings. Sometimes they chirp, a bat music, sung to the books, keeping them alive, the obscure and the forgotten, the dark and the brutal, the rare and the exquisite. Okay, and this is a poem inspired by some time I spent in Oaxaca, called Milagros. Outside the Cathedral of Santo Domingo, vendors hawk milagros, tiny miracles pounded from tin, toy body parts offered to the saints, arms dangling from sockets, eyes, spleen, lungs, and of course, the flaming heart. So many ways a heart can be aggrieved. The faithful light candles to cure what's fractured or broken, cancerous or arthritic. Votives huddle together like a flock of innocents. The nave is cool and ripe with the smell of scented smoke. I commune with the saints in my own way, not quite a prayer, not quite a litany of rosaries. I conjure up amulets to collect, candles for redemption. One for the sins committed by ancestors I never knew. One for the sadness of loves never reaching fruition. One for rivers that are no longer pure. One for the loss of my country as it could be. When the whole world from Oaxaca to Mumbai is ablaze with all that fury, hope, and despair, some will call it futile, a pilgrimage of superstition. I just want to sit a while longer in the glow of little fires others have lit. I really like writing poems in different forms, so I'm going to read a series of poems that are in different formats, and I'll explain a little bit about each one. The first one is a tritina, which is 3 stanzas, each with 3 lines, and the last word in each line is repeated in a different sequence in the poem. And the 10th line includes all 3 of those words. So the words you should listen for are olive, hill, and today, and you'll hear those words repeated. Tritina for Orvieto. Let us savor this red wine, dip our bread in oil from Umbrian olives grown and plucked from silvery groves, rooted into the hills above Orvieto. Let us be filled with joy and with feast, because today we are here, inhabiting a space between yesterday and tomorrow. Today, little shops offer bowls glazed with lemons, pomegranates, and olives, as we wander the twisting streets of this storied town balanced on a hill, high above the ordinary. The bones of saints rest atop the cobblestoned hill, amid a chaos of angels born from the hand of Signorelli. And today, we receive the fruits of his imagination, handed to us as a gift, sprig of olive from the hill, olive trees spreading branches into the long reach of today. And I'm going to read an abecedarian, which is a poem consisting of 26 lines. Each line begins with they're in alphabetical sequence. So the first line begins with A, the second line begins with B, and so on. And you won't be able to see it, but maybe you can hear the sequence. But I will have to confess I cheated a little bit when it came to X. Abecedarian for an English garden in autumn. All the roses are done for, petals brown and brittle, their clipped heads a sad crush heaped into wheelbarrows bound for dumps. How strange, our traveling a season eclipsed. No summer lingers, only these flowers fading into their scent. Gardeners rake remnants of mowed leaves, lawns, husks, and coppered leaves as we rest on a bench in shadowed remains of the day, just sitting, not needing anything. It's a moment to keep, however fleeting, for winter days when we'll long for this orchestra of plantings. My friend calls out the most exotic, as if in naming she can coax them to stay. Ox-eye daisy, quince, rambling rose. Profusion shutting down, just as it once burst open. Quietly they scatter, oak and maple leaves, gold and rust, mottled as spots on the back of old hands. Spumed clouds float like white peonies, blooms in the sky. For this one day we wander, unencumbered by time. Foliage untwists, each leaf veined in its own making. Tiny paths weave through the close, between ivied brick walls extravagant with red tangle, this handsome years-old climb. Dusk comes early, sun slips behind its zenith as we allow our eyes to rest where they want. And this is a haibun, which is a Japanese form of a poem, which is a prose poem followed by a haiku. July in Seattle. Imagine yourself at the top of a Ferris wheel, at the apex of its great circumnavigation, swaying a little, suspended in the comfort of your own cage. Nothing but sky and quietude as you look down over treetops, bay, ferries connecting island to city. Another solar cycle is churning, as many days behind as ahead. The whole world a mosaic shaded green and blue, pieces and scraps, shafts of dappled sunlight you can't hold in your hands. The gears we trust in move with measured momentum, descending with soft little clicks as we in a slow arc until the end meets the beginning. Pond mirrors sky, Canada geese in flight, no passport. And I'm going to conclude my travel poems with a couple of poems to celebrate living in Portland. And we live in a city of trees, and in about October, we all get a flyer from the city telling us when Leaf Day is in our neighborhood, because the city will come and collects all the leaves, and there's just big piles of leaves in the street. So I wrote a poem about that, and this is a dizaine, which is a French form of a poem, which is 10 lines with 10 syllables in each line, and there's a specific rhyming scheme. November. Municipal trucks scoop leaf-laden streets, oleo in shades of bark and burlap. Another season over the cusp, complete. No ginkgo gold or maple red, just scraps brittled sepia brown, like a fine old map. Workers, casual in their efficiency, flare in fluorescent vests so you can see them haul those splendid piles you raked. Little kites let loose by November's trees, surrendering their hold, yet still awake. And another thing I really like about Portland is how many poetry posts there are. And I have one, and I always stop to read them in my neighborhood, and I like it when people stop to read mine. I give some thought as to what to put out there. So this is kind of a appreciation for our poetry posts, and it's called Our Harvest. Late summer's cornucopia, zucchini, sweet cherry tomatoes, fava beans strung higher than our reach. Words, too, planted in gardens shine their essence on curbs and corners, poems on a post for anyone to read. Langston Hughes rises up from knotted roots at 45th and Siskiyou. Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Mary Oliver seeds joy all through the neighborhood, asking only that we take it, that it sustain us. If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate. Give in to it. Gary Snyder stands as witness high above Pate Valley, calming a disturbance, offering solace from it. He's there in the trembling shadows on a ridge next to the creek. He's here in the city, thumbtacked behind plexiglass, amid the ripe fallen plums, wanting to be seen, waiting to save us. All right. Let's see. We're going to be, I'm going to move now into some poems about my connection with nature, especially hiking, and especially hiking on the Oregon coast. And as Tom mentioned in the introduction, I wrote a book about the Oregon Coast Trail, and had the opportunity to hike it, of course, and it generated quite a few poems. And one of the poems the poem I'm going to read now is actually named after a hike on the Oregon Coast Trail called Amanda's Trail, which is near Yachats, and it is named after a Coos woman who was forcibly removed from her home and in 1864, and was forced to walk 50 miles to be relocated at a reservation near Yachats. And now this place has some real significance to local tribes, and it's kind of there's a kind of a grotto, a special place to remember Amanda and the people, her people. Amanda's Trail. It was her way to embrace circles of seasons in an abundance of bulbs, roots, berries, to harvest mussels in the low and salty estuary, until she became a refugee in her own homeland. It was her way to lay the dead in canoes hung from branches, always facing west. Those boats would sway in the breeze as souls rode into the next world. Which of us wouldn't enter eternity like that? It was her way to leave gifts for the long journey, basket, knife, blanket, until those gifts were stolen for souvenirs. It was her way to trust the shaman until the diseases came and there were no more living to tend to the dying. Today, we lace our boots and ready packs to step into forests ripe and sudden smells on the flanks of Cape Perpetua. The same cliffs, chasms, streams, rocks, the same churning waves in the distance. The path before us curves like the parentheses of history. We can't see its end as we cross over a bridge, traverse switchbacks, follow twisting trail to pause at a knoll overlooking the expansive sea. Cedars press green spirit weave against the sky, dappled with light, rooted in darkness. King tide. Despite the warnings, or because of them, we've come to witness the wilding surf. Spumed crowns exaggerate their gaudy froth on what's left of the beach. Stranded bull kelp bejewels the shore. We know the cautions, alert to sneaker waves that want to suck us into hypothermic void, mudslides, slick rocks. Logs already fallen, already dead, would roll and crush our bones easily as a bird's rib cage. We sidle up to danger's edge, its metallic salt taste on our tongues. Voyeurs unfold chairs on the dune to face the great arena, as if watching a coronation parade float by. Sky lowers its clouded bunting as waves buck out of their chutes, bellicose and frenzied. We don't know whether to fear or hallelujah praise them, and we just can't stop watching. Spirit animal. When a whale dies at sea, it descends with a majestic quietude, in death, feeding the life that once sustained it. Today, another gray has washed ashore, bloated carcass buoyed by wind and currents by the wake of the ship that struck it. Scientists probe the body, exposing gash and wound to salt and air. They measure blowhole to tail, teach us a whale's heart can weigh half a ton, that it sings to find companions, swims the miracle of migration, Arctic to Mexico. How lucky we are, how small, huddled around the barnacled creature already in decay, skin loose and slack as a deflated parachute, its huge heart withered within a cathedral of bones, knocking at the edge of the ocean, waiting for king tides to reclaim it. This is the poem I'm going to read next, is the one that's available on the broadside. If you didn't get one, it's on the yellow paper over there on the table, called The Tide Pools at Haystack Rock. Here, at the edge of enormous waters, we've come to celebrate the minuscule, tiny life revealed when waves recede, marine gardens flowering sea moss, grasses rinsed in a salt bath. Starfish color the pools purple and orange, as if reflecting a summer sunset. We watch them cling to barnacled rocks as they wait for returning rhythms of the tide. Inside those little pockets of life, anemones open and close their primitive mouths. We wonder if they can see us, if they fear us. We wonder if they feel the quiet pulse of home. We wonder if they know the end of our world is the beginning of theirs. And I'm going to move now to some poems having to do with my ancestry and related to my family, past and present. So, like I say, they're specific to my family, but hopefully there'll be some connection with you too. Dried flowers. My grandmother perfected the art of pressing flowers, collecting them the way some people gather stamps from countries they've never been. Edelweiss from Austria, Scottish bluebells, red poppies that once blazed slopes in Santorini. She ordered the rare and exotic from catalogs, and when they arrived, wrapped in tissue paper, She stuck them in encyclopedia pages next to places they came from, cheek to jowl with national monuments, presidents, and kings. When the blossoms were dried and flat and brittle, she glued them onto velvet, arranged into shapes of gardens and bouquets, boats sailing on an aqua sea. Once, with nothing but a backpack and lust for wander, I hiked alpine meadows, the highlands and moors, where wildflowers perfumed in abundance next to the path. With the purity of youth, I left the blossoms rooted, did not pick them, not even for her. Now that I am as old as she was then, I think of my grandmother hunched over her table, surrounded by dried flowers, peering through a magnifying glass at their fine markings, delicate whorls and patterns only nature could create. She was happiest there, surrounded by flora from so many places. She let the world come to her, with all its tiny blue flowers, fiddlehead ferns, the soft-petaled pansies that grew in her own backyard. And this is a poem about my mother, who recently turned 99 years old, and she has survived a World War, the Great Depression. She had COVID and survived that, has broken bones. She raised 4 kids, but she was not able to escape dementia. So this is a poem about her. Fortunately, she seems pretty content where she is, so that's the point of this poem. Her cocoon. My mother does not wander long halls of the memory care unit, waving her cane like a weapon. She is not trying to go home, searching for those gone before her. Though surely those visitations, my father, her mother, the son she outlived, could offer her a kind of comfort. I bring to her what I think she must be missing: peaches from the Okanagan Valley, digital bingo, radio set to the channel of big bands. Once in a while, we drink Chardonnay in the dingy lobby, dressed up with a few potted plants. As if some memory muscle could conjure up all those oaky, buttery happy hours on the deck of her suburban home, watching the sun unkiss the sky. How seasons melded without resistance, green to gold to brown. No clock, no wallet in the cocoon of her own private space. Her horizon a window overlooking the courtyard. She does not wander, is never lost, not wanting to unravel those silken strands that embrace her. And this poem is based on happy memories that I spent with my family at the beach as a child and well into adulthood. Tradition. So many August days we waited, our feet numb in the Pacific, chased seagulls, ran barefoot on sand, fine and white as that sifting through an hourglass. At lower tides, our father drew a line in hard sand with a stick of broken driftwood, one that found its way river to stream to shore. Then he drew another 50 yards down the beach. Go, he'd holler. Our father always won that race, until the year he didn't. Then he shrugged off his sweatshirt, tossed the stick to our dog, and turned to look once more at the distance he just crossed. From low dunes, we watched the afternoon sun soften into its pinks. The surf reached higher, washing away footprints and those lines in the sand, all that remained of the day of that tradition. Let's see, I'm going to read a couple more. My grandmother's china. My mother gives me her mother's china, handed down through a chain of daughters with a story of its luxury, I hear all over again how my grandmother mended, made do, nothing afforded for the sake of beauty itself but this china, bought at the Bon Marché with 3 years of savings. We box saucers, nest teacups. I have no use for egg coddlers, soup tureen, fragile cups with tiny handles. No room in my cupboards. My extravagance is something different altogether. Give me a substantial cup, something to wrap my whole hand around in the morning, like this one bought at the Oregon coast, where I watched the miracle of whales breaching, or these carried home from Oaxaca, Umbria, Santa Fe. Somewhere in Vermont, a mug baked in the kiln to the color of autumn leaves. When I drink from it, I smell the earth and the loam and the clay. Wedgwood, my mother says, and runs her fingers around the gold rim. She recalls again her mother's pleasure at setting these dishes on a crocheted tablecloth, elegant as an English garden, lively with red peonies, climbing rose, and lavender butterflies. She extends the box to me, and I take it. And I'm going to read one more family poem about both my parents, and based on a true memory. Foot massage. My parents never danced in the kitchen. No flamboyant dip in a red silk dress, no rakish tilt of a fedora. They swayed to a predictable rhythm of domesticity, proper, Presbyterian. Evenings, with dishes cleared and children pajamaed, they sat at opposite ends of the couch. My mother slipped shoes off, stretched her legs to nestle bare feet in my father's lap. He massaged her left arch and then the right with strong thumbs, slowly circling the ankles to caress her heels. He kneaded crevices between each toe to touch that tender hollow on the underside. She settled into cushions, arranging her feet as a cat would curl, and like a cat she purred. Who knew the foot, with all its tiny bones, could soften and surrender to pleasure like that? The whole house mellowed under its lid. Then they rose to the last choreographed tasks of the day. Latch the doors, dim the lights. 2 beats slow, quick, quick, slow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Connie, for that wonderful reading. Can we give her another hand, please? Yes. Thank you. So we have a question and answer period, and I have one microphone up here. Kristen's got the other one. I'll start. There's a number of questions that I would like to ask Connie. I think I will start about your interest in forms, because you wrote and shared with us poems in different formats. So how did you get interested in wanting to write in forms, and how many do you write, and how often do you do that?
Well, I would say that I started to write them usually in a class or a workshop I would take. That would sometimes be a assignment or a prompt, and certain forms I really took to. I really like the pantoum a lot, and also I've written some sonnets. But I don't know, I just think it's fun. It's kind of different, and as I started, because I learned about them through classes I took.
Do you have a favorite?
I didn't read a pantoum, but I really do like a pantoum. It has entire lines that repeat, so it's kind of a long poem, but you actually have to write about 10 lines.
Okay. Other questions for Connie?
You like the Pantun, is that what it's called? Pantun? Have you started writing more in that? I mean, is it sort of shifted how you write your poetry once you got attracted to that style?
No, not really. I mean, I would say it's the exception more than the rule. Typically, I just write in free verse. And once in a while, to liven things up or to get the juices flowing, I'll say, okay, I'm going to try a different form.
So in that short chapter you spent in California, you did transportation. Did you write any poems about transportation?
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm working on one right now about how I used to take BART one station away from where I worked to the Fruitvale station where there's a big Hispanic community. And I would just go there just to buy bags of mangoes from this guy. That's all he sold was mangoes. And I'm working on a poem right now about it. But other than that, no, I guess not.
I really enjoyed, it felt like you were really sharing core memories that really shaped you, which isn't the surprising part. I think that's why we write anyway, right? But I was really curious what's your editing process when you get to writing so succinctly? I mean, because you're not just like writing whatever, clearly. Like there was a process there that I'd like to know more about.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw me roll my eyes.
I did see that.
Editing is hard, and I actually, the hardest thing for me is getting started and coming up with a draft in the first place. And I can get into big slumps where it's really hard for me to start. Once I get a draft, then I actually kind of like the editing process, and sometimes I'll feel like a word isn't quite right, and I'll, make a note of other words that I might use, and I'll just kind of brainstorm and until it feels right. But yeah, it's a hard process. It's hard to know when a poem is too long or there's not enough there. It's editing in different ways.
Can I follow up on that? So, like the poem about when you're on the beach with your father, was that too long or too short at first? I gave that to someone I've been working with to get some feedback on it, and it was too long. I cut some out. But actually the real problem, he told me, was that I explained too much. And so that's what I took out, was some of the, actual statements about, well, he still wanted to win, but he made me take that out, and I think it was a good choice. Thank you.
I think it's always interesting for us to know who you feel you were influenced by and who are you reading.
Yeah, as far as who I'm reading, I subscribe to, 4 or 5 daily poems that come through my email, and I learn about new poets that way, people I've never heard of sometimes, and if it's a poem I really like, I'll print it off and sometimes look that person up, and sometimes if I really like what I see, I'll order their book. I learn about new poets that way. I would say the poets that influenced me, I did have a chance when I was living in California to study with, before she was as famous as she is now, with Dorianne Laux. And so I really like her poetry. Also Mary Oliver, William Stafford. I went to Lewis and Clark while he taught there. And so those are poets that really resonate with me.
Right here. Thank you.
Oh, I have another question. Your poetry, I don't read a lot of poetry. And one of the reasons I don't read a lot of poetry is it always feels so, like, what are they talking about? So inaccessible. And your poetry, I love your poetry because it is so accessible. So I can see your mother sitting on the couch. I can see your father, with his hand on the heel. And so my question is, did you start out writing poetry? Is your poetry today the way you began your poetry? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think my style could be described as narrative. I'm not very experimental or abstract. And then there's a lot of good poetry that is that, but that's not the way I write. So I would say I've always pretty much had that style.
Yeah. Well, thank you, because I love that I can access.
Well, I was very impressed with the way you connect with nature, and I feel that you're inside it, and we are allowed inside it. I especially would like you to comment on how you're relating to the animals that you write about. It feels, if I might say, very native in the sense of their soul, and how you have entered into their soul and then bring that out to us in the poems. Very, very moving.
Thank you. I appreciate that comment. Do you want me to read one more?
Is there any final question?
Connie's my sister, so I'm very proud of her. So
I wouldn't admit that if I were
this
you.
is sort of a meta question, and it occurred to me because the last poem you read, I think you ended it by suggesting that mom and dad latched the door, and you didn't use the word lock. And I know that they didn't latch their door; they locked their door, and that got me to thinking. How responsible is a narrative poet to factual things? No, and I'm not just talking about that as an example, but just more generally, do you have liberty in order to tell a story?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you notice that?
I happen to know that most of the stories you were telling about our parents were things that happened, but if you think that you can get a meaning out more effectively, not that you would make up a story, but you would do something like latch rather than lock.
Yeah, absolutely. And you noticed that, I don't know if you caught that I said something about that he threw the stick to the dog.
A dog, yeah.
We didn't
have
have
a dog. No.
But, totally made up.
True confessions.
But I thought it made kind of a nice little detail, so I threw that in. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't need to call my brother now. That really, that met a need there.
Well, thank you very much. I know one of the many things that I can remember is I'm an Oregonian, and so I can remember having my feet be numb, being in the Pacific Ocean till they were numb, and I thought that's right. That we used to do that before we learned not to do it. Thank you so much. Let's give Connie another hand, can we? Oh. Actually, I do. Sorry about that. Connie is going to read a final poem to end the event.
Okay, and this poem I'm going to read has nothing to do with any of the themes that I've read tonight. I wrote this in response to a notification that there were a publication was looking for poems to include in an anthology about Joni Mitchell. And so I decided to write a poem, and it involved a lot of research of listening to music. These days streamed through an iPhone, not on a turntable, but it was a lot of fun listening to her music again. So I wrote this poem called Reincarnation. Oh, how I want to be reborn as a lady of the canyon. Take me there when I've shed this earthly body, bones and skin and all, where the scent of sweet jasmine hangs in the air like heartbreak chords. Let me be serenaded by the music of wind chimes and mellow ballad, by the grace of Joni strumming her mandolin. Make of me a muse, pouring music down the canyon. You can feed me milk and toast and honey, a bowl of oranges too. Let's drink a case of each other, laugh and toast to nothing. We will be golden, we will be stardust. Lord, bring me back long-haired and blonde again, dressed in their perfume, doused in the perfume of eucalyptus oil. Dress me in fine silver and a fringed leather jacket. We'll have all the time in the world. Something kind of different, huh?
That's a lot of allusions to Joni Mitchell. That's great. Thank you all for being here very much. I hope to see you at some other events. Don Colburn's going to be here in July. Have a great night. Yeah.